Jazzie and today I'm going to be taking you on a tour of my garden. So, before we start gardening today, I want to give you a little bit of background on how this idea originated and why I wanted to start gardening in the first place. So, I've always had an interest in growing my own food and learning how to tend to a garden, how to care for plants. And that's a very big thing down here in the country where I live because there are a lot of farmers markets and a lot of farmers around here, and that's like a big source of revenue here in the country is growing produce and stuff. So that's a big thing here, and that's kind of what also piqued my interest. So this year we decided to finally go ahead and give it a try. So as you can see here, we have two large raised garden beds which I built earlier this summer with my dad and my brother, and that was a very great experience learning how to build these. We learned a lot of construction techniques and learning how to measure things and cut things with a saw and use a drill, because my dad does this on the regular, so he taught us, all of these different things and techniques. So that was a very great experience. So right here we have a interdeterminate tomato plant in this corner and that corner as well. And the reason that we place them here in these corners is because, as you can see, they're taking up a lot of space because they're interdeterminate tomatoes. And what that means is that they will continue to grow until the frost comes and basically kills them off. And there are two types, interdeterminate and determinate tomatoes, and these are interdeterminate, and determinate tomatoes will stop growing at a certain point. So we have those two growing here. We have a sweet heat pepper plant growing right here. She's doing very well. She's giving us a lot of produce, and she's doing very well, considering the heat and things. And right here we have a blonde bell pepper plant. She's also doing very well. And right here we have a squash plant. We have a straight neck squash plant. And over there in that corner we have a crook neck squash plant. And I'll explain the difference between those in a little bit. But for right now, what I'm planning on doing today is we're going to prune some of the brown leaves off of our tomato plants. And what we're also going to be doing is harvesting some of the squash plants because they're ready to be harvested. And we might go ahead and harvest another bell pepper plant off the blonde bell pepper plant, but we'll see in a minute. So, as we're going to come over here, and I'm just going to show you these brown leaves here on our lovely tomato plant right here. So as you can see, there are a lot of brown leaves and spots on here. We had to deal with some caterpillar issues a couple of weeks ago, but we seem to have gotten that under control. So basically they're turning brown because it's gotten very hot here in the summer months of July. It's very hot down here in Alabama at this time of the year. So you have to be careful with these because they do need direct sunlight, but it can get very hot if you don't water them enough, and it can burn their leaves. Also, this happens from a disease that I'm still learning about, but basically it just has the leaves curl up on the edges and they turn brown. And yeah, so what I'm going to be doing is cutting these off so that the plant can continue to pour all of its energy and focus into growing these tomatoes that we have going on here and to produce fresh, healthy foliage. So as you can see, I'm just going to take these scissors right here, just some standard kitchen scissors, and I'm just going to take it right here at the base of the stem growing here, and I'm just going to snip it right off. So as you can see, I'm just going to snip this off and then discard it over there in the woods because you don't want to keep this around because, it's just not helpful for the plant. So I'm just going to come in here and look at all these leaves. As you can see, you really have to get in here and look because it's so large and has so much foliage. You see these holes here from the caterpillars, but we don't really have to worry about that too much because they're doing pretty good considering. So I'm just going to go in here and just trim all of this dead foliage off here. Just trim all of this off. I'm just going to put this right here. And I'm just going to do this for the whole plant. And yeah. Okay, so now we're back and I finished up pruning. I went around and pruned everything while I was, pruning these. So come in, as you can see, she's looking very nice and pretty again and very healthy. I went ahead and trimmed off all the brown foliage and stuff. So she's doing very well now. She's doing really good. I'm going to come back and water her. in a few minutes after I'm done showing you this, but I want to show you our other tomato plant because he has a lot of tomatoes growing. As you can see, he has a tomato here, here, here. He has about, last time I checked, about 13, 14 tomatoes going on, but I'm sure he's already grown. As you can see, a couple of more going on here. So he's doing very well. I'm sure you've noticed I've been calling them him and her. And this right here is Frank. He is kind of my favorite, but don't tell the other ones that. He's my favorite, and I started him in the house when he was just a little transplant tomato plant. So I started him in the windowsill, and I grew him there for about maybe a month before I transplanted him into the garden beds. So he's doing very well, and the reason that you can see he's so big, he's gotten so big and healthy, is because actually this is a little secret in the gardening community. Is what you do with tomato plants is you actually crack an egg and you put it down in the ground when you plant it in the hole. So we don't really know why that works. It's just a tip that I heard from a fellow gardener, and basically you just dig really deep down into about 10 to 12 inches. You go down really deep into the ground and you place the egg in, and then you put the tomato plant on top and you just cover it all up. And so that's why they're so big and they're so healthy, is because I actually put an egg in there. So also I wanted to address this right here. As you can see right here, we have what we call slime mold, but it's more commonly known as dog vomit. I know, not the nicest of nicknames, but yes, it is slime mold. And what this is basically a fungus, but not really, because it can kind of move itself around, and yeah, it can move itself around, and it likes to feed off of vegetation, and it likes to attach itself to plants, and it can potentially take over your garden if you're not careful. And how this works, and with other funguses as well, is it comes from overwatering your garden. So there's a fine balance between overwatering and underwatering, because you don't want to underwater, because then your plants will dry up and not have enough moisture to produce. But you don't want to overwater, because then you'll have more fungus and molds and things that go on. We've dealt with that in the past few weeks in our experience gardening. So you just want to look out for that. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to show you how I get rid of that. There's basically, you just scrape it off your plant and out of the dirt, and you just discard it. So what I'm using right here is actually a kitty litter scoop that I use for my cat Nugget. And yeah, it's the best tool I found, really, because it's good at scooping out the dirt and stuff and just getting rid of it. So I'm gonna use this right here. As you can see, I'm just gonna get right in there and just scrape that off. Just scrape it right off, get up in there, and I'm actually gonna take my scissors right here, because as you can see, it's a little bit better at getting in there, and just scrape all of that off. And yeah, that is what you want to do. And then I'm just gonna go in the dirt around it and just scoop all of that off up under there. Just take it really and just scoop all of that off. Here, just scoop it off and take it over here and just get rid of it. So we have that, and also you can see there's some right here growing next to my squash plant. So here's also some slime mold. I'm just gonna take it. As you can see, it's pretty nasty. So I'm just gonna go in and scrape all of that off, like so. Just scrape it all off before it can get in there. Yeah, so it'll be fine down there on the ground, but you want to make sure that you're not overwatering your garden, because this was very common garden issue when you overwater. So you just want to be very careful of overwatering and underwatering your plant. Okay, so now that we're back after getting rid of all of that slime mold, I'm here to show you our crookneck squash plant. So as you can see, I have one right here, a crookneck squash that I harvested a little earlier in the day. And the reason that this is called a crookneck squash plant is because, as you can see, it has a crook in its neck. The neck of the squash curves downward in a little crook, so that is the difference between a crookneck squash and a straight neck squash. That's the difference. So I'm going to come over here and show you what we've got going on here. As you can see here on the leaves, you can see these little white patches going on here. This is actually due to powdery mildew, and that is also a fungus similar to the slime mold. And the reason for this is because also it's due to overwatering, just like most funguses in the garden that can be found here. And so the way that you deal with this and many other funguses is what you do is you go to your local garden center, or you can mix up some different home remedies, but I recommend going to your local garden center because they'll know exactly how to help you with your whatever the situation may be. So powdery mildew, I just take some different fungicides in a little spray bottle, and I just spritz it all over the leaves, and that usually takes care of it. As you can see, these leaves are growing pretty green and vibrant, so these are doing pretty well considering. And so I just come in here and spray all of this, and I'm still treating it. It's been about 2 weeks since I started treating it, so it's doing pretty well still considering. So yes, and so what I want to tell you also is with squash, there's this thing, bees pollinate your squash plants. So when you have a squash growing here at the bottom, it comes with a little flower. A little flower grows at the bottom of your squash. And so in that little flower is where the bees go to pollinate the squash plant, and that helps it to grow bigger and stronger and just healthier in general. And so, but with the lack of bees, because bees have been becoming extinct in recent years, and it's really bad for gardening and for farming in general, for the farmers and stuff. So what you can do, and what I've learned this year in my experience gardening, is you can come in here, and as you can see, this right here, there's a difference. You have a male flower and a female flower. So this right here, as you can see, this is not attached to a plant. So this is a male flower. So I'm just going to snip this little guy off right here. And as you can see, you just take the flower petals here and you just peel this off right here. You just peel this back like so. And as you can see, this right here is all pollen. This right here is what you can use to fertilize and pollinate your squash plant. So all of our squash is basically grown pretty big, so the flowers have kind of, as you can see, dried up here, as this one, because this one is a mature squash. So, but basically what you do is you open up the flower on the bottom. Let me see, I don't have any right now, but with a flower. So what you do is you open up the flower on the bottom, and you just take this right here and you just go around it, and you just pollinate that like a bee would. And you can use this twice, so one of these can go for 2 of these squashes, and you can just go around there and pollinate that, and that will help your squash to be healthy and big and strong like this one. So that is a neat little tip that I learned in my learning experience with gardening. So right here I have this one, but I'm going to harvest about 2 more because I have 2 more ready on this plant. Then I'm going to harvest 2 of our straight neck squash plants. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I do that. So what you do is pretty easy, really. You just get in here. As you can see, this one is also ready. You can tell this is ready to be harvested because it is not too light in color, nor is it too dark in color. You want it to be a medium shade of yellow, because if it gets to be orange, then it's gotten too hard and it's past its ripeness. So this right here is your ideal squash to harvest from a straight neck squash plant, as well as a crook neck squash plant. So what we're gonna do is just, let me see here, get in here and just snip that right off. So as you can see, we have this beautiful crookneck squash here that I just harvested. It's very nice. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this in and just clean it up, and yeah. So I'm gonna go around and harvest all of these, and then I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna show you everything that I harvested off of these. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Okay, so I've gone around and I've harvested just about all of the squash. As you can see here, I have almost a full bowl of just squash going on. So that's wonderful. And I left one right here so I could show you the difference between a straight neck squash and a crookneck squash too, with a straight neck. So as you can see here, I'm just gonna get in here like all of the rest of them. I'm just gonna get in here like all of the rest of them. And I'm going to just take this and I'm just going to snip it right there. And I'm just going to pick her up. And so this right here is a straight neck squash. It doesn't have a crook in its neck like the crook neck squash. And this is more common to me. This is what I usually like to eat. The crook neck squash is a bit different and I really like it too, but this right here is the more common squash. So yeah, this is what you will find most likely in your grocery store or something like that. So yeah, I have this. I'm gonna put that over there. And I forgot to mention earlier, but I actually have 2 watermelon plants growing right here. As you can see, watermelon plants are long vining plants. So as you can see, these are very long. You can see this one here stretches all the way down here. So almost like 4 to 5 feet almost, I would say, just looking at it. I haven't measured it, but just looking at it, I would say about 4 to 5 feet is how long this is. So yeah, we're starting to get some little buds and flowers on it. So soon we'll have some watermelon, little baby watermelons growing. So I'll be sure to show you that once that happens. So yeah, I have my bowl of squash right here. I'm gonna come over here and basically, I think I'm going to harvest this right here. Let's get in here so I can show you this little blonde bell pepper plant. I'm gonna get in here and harvest this one as well because it's a little small, but I do believe it should be ready for me to harvest. So I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can get this and show you. I'm gonna come up here, not too far down, but a little bit up higher. And I'm just gonna snip that off. And I'm just gonna put that in my bowl. And now that I've harvested everything, I'm just gonna go ahead and water everything and then we'll be finished. So I'm gonna put that right there. And I'm gonna pick up my watering can and just go ahead and go around and water everything. And then yeah, we should be about finished. So as you can see, I am just sprinkling some water over it in a little circle. And our raised garden beds have a lot of holes drilled in the bottom. They have about maybe 10, 12 holes down in there. And that is to help with proper drainage, because that's a very common problem here in raised beds, is that the water can really sit up and it can really just like have way too much moisture and attract a lot of bad things such as fungus and mold and things. So yeah, you want to make sure you have proper drainage in any garden, but especially if you do raised beds. So yeah, that's something to look out for. So I'm just going to come around, maybe tell you a little bit more about my plants. This right here is Alice. She is an all-star strawberry plant, so I'm just going to give her some water. The tomato plant that I was pruning in the beginning of the video is Bonita. This right here is Alistair, the all-star strawberry plant. You've met Frank over here. Give him some water. You don't want to give them too much water, but just enough to make sure they stay good and hydrated out here in this heat. So this right here is Ben. He is my crookneck squash plant. And then I have over here, I have Jerry, yes, Ben and Jerry, the squash plants. So I'm gonna give some water. And then I have Walter right here, the watermelon plant. Give Walter a little water, not too much, just enough. And the last bit of water is gonna go over here to Wallace. My last plant, my last watermelon plant. So yeah, that's it for this video. I'm really happy that I was able to show you my garden and give you a tour, and I appreciate you being here to see this and to learn a little bit more about gardening with me. And I'm excited to take you along on my gardening journey and show you as I continue to learn how to garden and how to care for these plants, and I'm excited to show you how things go. So I hope you have a wonderful day and stick around to see what else happens. Bye!